Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to our Last of Us review podcast. I'm your host, Richard Billy Jr., and tonight I'm joined by Mr. Adam Vale. How's it going, Adam?
How you doing? How you doing? I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm hyped. Let's talk about this show. Yeah, I love it. I don't care what anyone says. I love it.
Yeah, and we're also joined by Mr. Carlos Romero. How's it going, Carlos?
Hey, Rich. How's it going, everyone? Adam's right. We don't care what Adam thinks.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
um, excited to talk about this episode. This was the first controversial episode.
Mm,
It might be an exaggeration. I know the overwhelming majority liked it, but there are some people that had their problems. So
Of
I would
course.
I am
Of
interested to see what
course.
you guys think.
yeah, I'm also interested because we didn't discuss any of this stuff ahead of time. So this
None.
would be a fun conversation. Um, so yes, tonight we're going to be talking about episode three, titled "Long, Long Time." Um, so before we got dive deeper into the discussion, I want to get you guys initial impressions, and I want to go to you first, Carlos, because I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about this episode.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because a lot of the Twitter stuff happened before I got to watch the episode. So I got to see a lot of the feedback towards it. A lot of people were super excited, calling this probably one of the greatest episodes in TV history. And then there were some people, because our circles, Rich. A lot of our circles is gaming folks. So people who play the game, and there's people who said, "Oh, this is the first big deviation from the game." So I went in with those types of expectations. I'm either expecting a great episode or something that's lackluster because it deviates from a beloved IP. Uh, where do I fall within all of this? I really like this episode. I'm thinking, is it my favorite episode? I don't know yet. I can't quantify how I compare this episode to the rest because it's just so different from the other episodes. I feel like all three episodes have been different from each other. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed what this episode did. Um, yes, it did deviate from the game. It gave us more of a backstory to certain characters that we didn't get as much of a backstory in the previous video game installment. Um, it was emotional. It was a lot of stuff that people. I saw people calling it a filler, which I really do not agree with. I feel like this episode served the overall narrative, and we'll get into deeper why it did that. I just really enjoyed. I thought the acting of both of the new characters were really well done. What's the name of the
Bill
guy?
Offerman. Yeah, Offerman. He was
Offerman,
from yeah. He was
Parks
from
and Rec,
Parks and
right?
Rec. Yep, Parks
Yeah,
and Rec and
he was
Devs.
incredible, man.
Yeah.
He was incredible. I thought he was like the standout of this episode. So yeah, overall, really enjoyed this episode. I understand why some people were turned off by it, especially people who play the game. Other people, I don't understand, um, but yeah, great episode. Really enjoyed it.
That sounds great. Yes, very good take, Carlos. So I'm going to go to you next, Adam. What did you think about this episode?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. I also I didn't get when I did get a chance to watch it. I already saw all kinds of things blowing up from people in our group and other people saying certain things, and some stuff was just baffling for people that say they've played this game and they're like, oh great, so now they had to make this character gay. I'm like, he was gay in the game.
Oh yeah,
People weren't paying attention, I guess, when that segment came up, but it was they I just liked the backstory, and then I also saw that Carlos, people saying, oh, this is just a filler. No, a filler is when it's a side story that's not related, then it connects and it doesn't do anything. This was part of the journey. This is where they were going for Joel and Ellie. They were en route to see Bill and Frank, and so it makes sense for this to happen. And one of the things that the showrunners had said going into this series is that they wanted to add more filler to all the letters that are found in The Last of Us. Last of Us is tons of letters. They said they're going to put faces to letters that didn't have faces, and I get it, because most of it, there's some parts where you're just reading it yourself, and if you miss it, you miss it, because you could easily miss a lot of little notes that are everywhere. But this was a big part. We sort of hinted at it last week. It was like, how are they going to do this whole thing with Bill? Some people complained also. It was like, oh, well, Bill didn't die in it. I was like, well, we don't know what happened to Bill, because they left him, and now is it. He's happy in his world. So I really enjoyed this. It gave that backstory of Frank. It put them together. They had their good moments, showed how they met, all that stuff. Years were passing. They were in a relationship. It also shows that Joel and Jess were part of that trade group there, and they were doing things back and forth over time. It fills out that part of the story, and that's the way I see it. I didn't see it as full at all. So then, if we go full circle, and then of course they do their suicides there. When Joel and Ellie show up, then it makes perfect sense with all of this, and even with Bill doing what he did, makes perfect sense. It's like, what else does he have to live for? He had nothing else, and he was already older, and he found love in Frank, and now that love is going to be gone, and then what? Then he's just there alone, miserable. He doesn't want to go back to that life. Doesn't want to. So I was okay with it. I enjoyed it. I liked how they filled that out. It was a little slower pace. If people were looking for the constant kill and all that, they sort of had a little tease with that, with Ellie with the knife, where she was like touching the monster's head. I forgot. I'm just blanking on the name of that one.
I'm pretty sure you're going to call it a walker, right?
It's not. That wasn't a clicker.
That wasn't a clicker. It was just.
It's just because the clickers have that stuff, like almost like a visor on their eyes,
and they make the clicking sound.
Yeah, and they make the clicking. This is like a little screamer one, but she was messing with it, and then she jabbed it in the head. So we finally get to see that. She also, but I won't jump ahead. But yeah, overall, I think it was great. I had nothing wrong with it, especially now. Well, I know a lot of people had one issue, and it could still happen, but because I'm playing Dead Space. In Dead Space 2, there was a famous scene where you get hung up upside down type of situation. And that was something that happened in The Last of Us. Remember, Bill came in to save the day. And it's like, well, that could still happen. We can have Ellie or someone else, a whole other character. They can always sprinkle somebody else in. And I get that, because that was a very important part of the game. That was a tension-filled moment of the game. So.
Yes. All right, so let me start by saying, yes, excellent takes, as always, Adam. And let me start by saying I agree 100% with what you just said, because that was what I thought about when I saw this episode prior. And I'll get into my impressions, but that was what I thought about. That scene in particular, I'm hoping that some of that stuff is saved for something else that happens in the season, as well as the scene where you see in the game where you see Ellie, Joel, and Bill when they are trying to get the car going, and then you have clickers coming out of the houses on multiple sides of the street.
Yeah.
That was another great scene too. So I hope we get to see those scenes in the future. But with that said, here's my response to the episode. I also thought it was a very good episode. I mean, yes, again, it's not a filler, like you both said. I don't look at this as a filler. It told the perspective of, how a relationship was handled during this time period. And I think that was important for them to show that, because, again, if you played the Last of Us game, they did not portray Frank in a positive light. This is somebody who committed suicide, of course, Bill's partner in the game, but he leaves the suicide note for Bill. And, of course, this is why Bill is resenting. He's angry because he's left by himself.
If I remember right, he got bit. That was it. He was going to leave anyway, but then he got bit, and then he killed himself. Was that also in that? That was the whole thing, right? He was leaving, but he was fed up with him. So it wasn't so much that he killed himself just because he felt like, if I can't leave, then I'm going to kill myself. It's more of he got bit, and he didn't want to turn while there, that type of thing.
That's exactly what it is. Yep, you got it. You nailed it. So this was a far better. They handled this a lot better because Bill actually had a happy ending, even though they both commit suicide. It's like the character when you see the character in the beginning, he's already by himself. He's isolated. So for him to actually find someone and then build a connection with that person and last all of this time because they met in 2003. That was when they showed that. Well, no, it was a couple of years after that. 2003 is when they first introduced us to Bill.
Yeah.
Then a couple of years later is when he meets Frank, and they stayed together and got old together. I thought they really handled that well as far
I
as
like
telling
that
story.
twist of when the Raiders came and they're getting attacked and Bill gets shot and Frank is trying to do a patch up and Bill is making it seem like he's not going to make it, and then they sort of fast forward time and you hear them and you see someone in like a wheelchair and like, oh man, and then it turns around and you see no, it's Frank that's in the wheelchair and it's Bill that's pushing it. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the tragic moment to know that it was coming to an end. But yeah, the one quick thing I do want to mention before we get into the deviation stuff, as you both said, Nick Offerman did an excellent job in the episode. This is an excellent performance by him. I also need to give a shout out to Murray Bartlett because this
Frank.
actor, this guy who plays Frank, he was in the White Lotus season 1. He's also in the Welcome to Chippendale show currently on Hulu. So he's in a lot of stuff right now. He's doing an excellent job. But yes, the way they captured this relationship was excellent. The other thing about it is it's not really just about the performance. The writing was on point because some of the lines they had in there, like I understand, listen, a lot of people don't like the fact that, the character is gay, but again, as you already said, Adam, we knew about this character in the game beforehand that the character was gay. But some of those lines they had, like that line where, as you said, when they're both commit suicide, they both have the drink, and then Bill has that line about "You were my purpose." That is a very deep, emotional.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. So that's why I say I have respect for that right there. So I thought it was a very good episode, though. And again, as you both said, I didn't think it was a filler. It made sense in the context of the story because they had to come to Bill and get that battery. So I thought they handled it well. I, like Carlos said earlier, I don't think I can say it's the best episode of the season yet because I really liked episode 2. But let's see what happens because I'm very curious to see how they handle everything else moving forward. So,
and we still haven't seen all the controversial characters that this game has to offer. People may say like, "Oh, well, look what they did." Keep watching.
Well, the most controversial character we already seen. But we won't talk about that. If you guys want to ask me after the show. But like Rich said, a lot of the story points and a lot of the writing was enhanced sort of the experience of living in this world, and it at the end it all applied to what Joel's purpose should be, because the first couple of episodes, ever since he lost his daughter, it feels like he hasn't had that much of a purpose. It's sort of just in survival mode, kind of like how Bill was at the beginning of the episode. And by seeing in contrast what Bill and Frank did, I feel like it gave Joel much more of a meaning and much more of a purpose to his life. And his purpose is to get Ellie to wherever she's supposed to go and get his brother in Wyoming.
Well, now it's his brother, because think about it, he has the original goal was to get Jess, remember, get the battery, get the part they needed, and then off they go. I mean, Tess, and to head out. But now Tess is no longer a part of the future plans there. So it's okay, bring Ellie to where she has to go, but what about for him? What's his plan then?
I agree. And let me add this because you brought up Tess. I like how they tie up that last note that he reads, and the fact that the message that was sent, in case Joel was with Tess, because that was important. We already know what happens later in the game, so they are slowly building to these moments when you see things that
Just,
happen
and he said
between
it's like
Joel
people
and Ellie.
like us are here to help, and this is
Hmm.
what we do. This is our purpose. Even though he doesn't like him, and they do that in him. We didn't get to see much of that in this, but in the game, yeah, they don't get along. It's not a thing. But it was great for that to be in there. It's like, well, I never liked you, but I respected you.
Hmm.
And men like us, we're here to help others and protect. And I had my person protect just like you. And then that's when Ellie stopped reading, and of course he read the rest. He knew. So
Yeah.
maybe that was needed, because even beforehand, you could see how he was still being very cold with her. Like
Hmm.
like he's just being forced to do this. It's not like what we saw earlier in the first episode when he was carrying her and he had that weird flashback with the soldier in front and then thinking of his daughter and then
Hmm.
just wanting raised out. It's like that. He's flushed that from his mind now. He now sees her almost like a burden, as opposed to, this is a little girl that I'm going to help out. He doesn't seem to care.
By the
But
way,
maybe, yeah, go ahead.
I do want to interject before I forget. I really, really, really like Joel and Ellie's dynamic in this show, because the whole scene at the beginning with in when there's not necessarily a campsite, but when Joel is eating his little things, little rations and stuff, and he gives them to Ellie, and that whole that whole thing from there to when they walk to all the dead bodies. I really, really like the way that they talk to each other, because a lot of other shows that aren't as good, they would have made, Joel just be like a dick the whole time, and or Ellie be the dick the whole time. And it's like the dynamic is like kind of like annoying to watch. I just really like you can see that these characters, in their acting, they feel something like they've been through a tragedy, but they don't express it in a way that's annoying for the viewers to watch. Um, yeah, I just really like the way that they interact in this show. I like their dynamic, and yeah, and we can talk about some of the details. A lot of the lore that got dumped from Joel this episode is pretty significant. Um, and but Adam, I cut you off, so I'll let you finish your thought.
I
And then we
forgot
can.
what I was.
My
Oh, yeah.
bad.
Yeah, I got thrown off. I don't know. But it was good. That just giving that purpose. So we'll get to see, and as time goes on, because it's over a series of months that they do this travel, and that bond becomes stronger. So we'll see it develop.
By the way, I do want to
I
mention. Oh, God, Rich.
oh no, go ahead. I'll go after you.
I do want to mention, since I mentioned the whole lore stuff. What did you guys think about the way? And I'm glad they kind of cleared this up this early, because we saw in episode 2, we saw the sort of the Tales of the Last of Us preview in Indonesia with the doctor, and we saw that kind of sort of what happened there, and then it just so happens that in one day, snap, everything just turned to crazy land. But they mentioned that the reason why, and Joel mentioned this, the reason why all of that happened is because it was in the products.
It was
It
in the
was
food.
it was
Yeah.
in the food. It was, and I love that they made that clarification, because it makes sense. It makes sense why a lot of people would just instantly turn, because if it's just one person turning, coming from an airport and turns, and like it I feel like it'd be a lot harder to sort of make everything seem like just in one day the whole world went to chaos.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I mean, I don't feel like the game did a very good job of explaining where the virus came from, where all this stuff came from.
Yeah.
So it was definitely an opportunity to better explain that in the show, and I think I really appreciated that. Like in episode 2 as well, when you saw how, when I think believe it was Joel stepped on the vine that was connected to the one of the clickers that was dead, and then you saw a whole bunch of them were rising up.
Mhm.
That was what basically got them
Yeah.
moving. I'm glad that they take these little things to explain how certain stuff happens. So I agree that was a very important detail. I'm glad they went into that as well for sure.
Because it's one of the things, and we all know, as people who've played video games for a long time, a lot of these types of clarifications are only made through audio logs or notes or letters in a game. They're not really either shown or explained or transmitted as much in the actual game, because the
And most
importance.
people don't even pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, I'm just here to collect all this stuff so I can get the chief or the trophy or whatever. I don't care." They don't play it out, but that fills up the backstory. The most famous one, and I'm sure a lot of people listening know, is Bioshock. Bioshock with those Vox audio logs. If you listen to it, then it's pretty much going to tell you the outcome of the story and what's happening. But so many people didn't listen to it. It was like, wait a minute, what, am I supposed to be doing? Am I the bad guy? And what's happening? And then poof, you find out. So it's great. It's great storytelling, especially when it's audio. And then, like I mentioned, playing Dead Space, the remake, and there's a lot of audio logs now, and it's just to hear it and then just listen. So if you're ever playing a game, people, and it's collectibles, just don't think it's just a collectible. Listen to it, because it's actually going to flush out the story. They're there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. So on that note, let's move to obviously the deviations from what actually happened in the game. We've already touched upon certain things we didn't get to see. One other thing I know we didn't really get to see, we didn't get to see the dynamic between Bill and Ellie.
And
Because there's a lot of back and forth arguing, but that was very exciting in the game. I like the idea of the journey to get to Bill, the fact that there were all these traps. You had to be very careful where you went. And to go to what you said earlier, Adam, about the point where Joel gets caught in the trap upside down and you have to shoot the clickers. All of those moments I thought were great. So I hope we do see them again, but I still think it was a good decision to have this story, because we didn't have any context. We didn't have enough context as to the relationship between Bill and Frank. And again, they made it more positive in terms of what, them being together in the very end. So I'm okay with that. Do I think they could have added some more things in there where Ellie actually did get a chance to interact with Bill? I thought that would have been great, but I'm okay with this direction, just so long as we get some of those exciting moments later with other characters in place of Bill.
Yeah. I can understand people's complaints, but only if, let's say, Bill was a major part of the entire game. If, let's say, Bill was someone that joined their party and we're like, oh yeah, remember in this chapter he did this and he saved him, and no, then I get it. If you kill him off in episode 3, it's like, what are you doing? You're changing the whole game then. But that's not the case here. It was just that one part, and then that was it. They left and he stayed. So it's okay. It was good to make these changes in this way. And yes, some of the action parts we missed out on, but I have a feeling that could always pop up anywhere else. Joel could always get caught in another trap and get hung upside down. There's going to be plenty of other people for Ellie to argue with, as we'll come across later on. So if they want that banter, it's coming. So
if there was 2 disappointments of the switches, 2 of them would be, for me, number one, the setting. I understand, it seemed like a whole neighborhood, that sort of kind of suburban type neighborhood that he took control of. I really liked in the game. It was more of like outer city kind of place, or closer to the city. It just felt like a little bit more, tight and crammed, and claustrophobic in case there was anything around the corner and stuff. I feel like that would have been a better setting for me. And number 2, oh good.
What?
Oh, okay. I thought my bad. Thought you were gonna say something.
No, but I will say something. You reading my mind. You were reading my mind, because I was going to say
it's
something.
a Division 2 all over.
There is all over again. But the one thing that I was going to say is that I felt was different is when we saw the trailer, we saw the teaser that Offerman was going to be in this. I mean, he's a known actor.
Yeah.
And as we said in the game, Bill just has that one part, and that's it. I was like, oh, they're going to extend. This is my mind. I'm thinking, oh, they're going to extend Bill's part. He's going to join them, and he's going to play a major part in this. This makes perfect sense. You pick up this survivalist. He's alone. His partner had died. Blah, blah, blah. Maybe we didn't know at the time, but I was thinking, well, maybe they meet up with him after Frank has died. just like we saw in the game, but things pan out different. I was really surprised that he did die because he's a known actor. I don't know why. I just didn't see him as a one and done episode guy, and that was it. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one comment I do want to make with Carlos, because we did have this discussion last week. We were wondering, based on the trailer they showed for this episode last week, if this character was going to show up in multiple episodes, because it definitely looked different from the other trailers we've seen before. Yeah. So we got our answer, but again, it was a very well done. I don't have any criticism with him being in one episode. And then, of course, we already know there are other characters they come across. And some of those episodes, some of those characters are going to probably be around for maybe more than one. Maybe. We'll see. But it makes sense, for sure, in the context of moving the story forward. So
my second issue, it's a minor gripe, but it's an issue nonetheless. If we're gonna give all the positives, might as well give all our negatives. It was the invasion scene. I felt like kind of
with the Raiders that were attacking.
With the Raiders, the dude just went at the middle of the street where everyone can see him, and started shooting. And I felt like, I feel like this dude would have taken a strategic position or someplace where you can, light him up or be a little bit more competent in the way he defended his territory.
I agree with you, Carlos. I would have liked to have seen at least one of those Raiders get closer to Bill, and then have Frank having to take out that Raider, because it would have showed you, it would have hinted that, yes, well, if you have to protect yourself, then yes, Bill could have taught Frank some stuff, and we could have seen him take someone out to protect his partner. So I agree.
Well, at least with the guns, he had so many guns. That's one thing we didn't see. We didn't see him train Frank on any of those weapons. Mm-hmm. So it would have been cool if it's like, all right, stay inside, and then he comes out with an assault rifle, it's like, and starts pegging them off. It's like, all right, well, I guess he did pick up a few things from Bill.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if there was any other thoughts on the deviations, because I did have a question about the trailer for the next episode. If you guys saw the trailer of the next episode that we're gonna get this upcoming Sunday, and if you had any thoughts on that trailer.
I don't think I remember much.
Well, actually, before that, I do want to mention, the deviations considered. At the end of the day, Joel and Ellie ended up on the truck, which is where it needed to go. If they didn't end up on the truck after that, then it would have been a severe deviation.
That's from the teaser trailer, because they were in a car. They take the car. They don't take the truck. But like you said, they end up in the truck. I don't know how they got to the truck. We find out in the next episode, because in this one, it was just a car. It wasn't a truck.
No, it was a truck.
Was it a truck?
It was definitely a truck.
It was a truck. And if you've seen the trailer for the next episode, it looks truck. Like it's. Oh no! As they had the joke, I guess Joel made about a old Chevy. When Ellie had the comment, it feel like a spaceship, and then Joel pretty much says, "Oh no, it's a piece of junk. It's an old car." So
I don't know.
Yeah, but no, I was going to say, what we saw in that trailer for the next episode, that looks like from the game when they finally run into those other people. When they see there's a guy out on the street, and then they say, "Oh, should we stop?" And no, Joel says, "No, keep going." And then we get that whole scene with the violence between them and these other people. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next week, because it looked like obviously.
You thinking of the people at the mansion?
The mansion.
Remember that in the game where he has to work his way through? When you're working your way through to get, I called it a mansion. It's a big old house, but there was a bunch of them. Are you talking about that group?
Well, I think it eventually gets to that. If I recall, this is when they're basically driving on the street. They see the guy, and then they keep driving, and the guy pulls out a gun. They end up crashing. Then you have that whole thing where they're fighting in front of the store. Oh, okay. Well,
see now. I don't know. Oh, I know what you're saying. Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, it's been a while, but I don't know if that happened before the other one. I don't know, but yeah, either way, there's a bunch of different groups, and no one wants to be their friend. That's all you need to know. So
Yeah,
it's
this
gonna be, you know,
if you felt like this episode was a lull, where it was a little bit slow and it didn't, there was not enough action, other than in the sheets. This definitely will be have a lot more action this upcoming episode. So you're for those that are adrenaline junkies, you'll get your fix on this next episode for sure. Um, but yeah, it was a truck, and it felt like this after they got into the truck and started driving. It felt like the game all over again. It's like, oh, I remember this from the game.
yeah. Oh, I know what you're talking about when they get on the highway. That part and they
Yeah, because
start
in the
traveling.
in the game, like I think Rich mentioned earlier, Bill helps them get the truck starting by pushing it,
Yeah.
Yep.
and then he's
Yep.
left behind, and Ellie and Joel go in, and there's like a little montage where the time is flying by because they're driving through the highway. Ellie finds a dirty magazine. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So and
That
then and
those
then
were all the subtle hints to let the
yes,
Bill was gay.
Man, it,
Besides the suicide note that Frank left in the game. So
mhm.
yeah, so anyone that's still surprised about that, they definitely wasn't playing the game
Yeah,
because it was there.
yeah.
and then it continued with the one person we saw in the preview. We saw that one person saying, "Hey, I need help," and
Yep.
then shit hits the fan. Essentially.
Yeah. Because I mean, we still have the father and son. That's later. We know that should pop up.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's still later. Yeah,
yeah, we still got Joel's brother. That should happen. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot that happens, and we know that they are adding the DLC parts. So there, it's
yes,
gonna
And
that's gonna be interesting to see how they squeeze that in here.
I do want to make one prediction. I believe that will be a one-off episode because I was wondering when you guys said before it's a 9 episode season, right? So
Hmm.
that probably is going to be a one-off episode we get before it gets to the finale where it goes into Ellie's backstory. That's what my guess would be.
See, now some
Yeah.
people would argue that's a filler because that character is not going to pop up in any way because they already know that that person has passed. Because that's
Oh
what I
yeah.
consider filler when someone says, "All right, let me tell you about this person." Well, that person doesn't impact the future of the episode. So then, yes, now, all right, let's do the filler. As opposed to this,
Well,
they were en route to Bill. So this is everything that happened going into it.
I agree. So I know some people are going to definitely feel that, but one thing I do want to say though is I personally, I may be the only one that thinks this. I think that episode is necessary because not just to tell Ellie's backstory, but also to make you feel a little bit more sympathetic towards the character. Because the way they portray the character in the show, she pretty much is a smart ass. The way she talks and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
I noticed like I said, Carlos said earlier he likes the back and forth between Ellie and Joel. I like it too, but some people that I talked to have been talking to who have been watching this show for the first time, they feel like this character is just a bratty kid. You don't really have all the context. Yes, she's an orphan, but that's why I say that other episode is necessary to give her more character to make you understand. And then, of course, we know that they're going to possibly go into the fact, when she was born, stuff like that. All that is already out there for information that you're going to dive into. So all that is needed, I feel, to really go full circle and tell you who this character is.
All right. So here's one question I have for you guys. What's one scene or one segment of the game that you are looking forward to? You don't have to go too in depth, but anything in particular that you're like, I really hope it's in this show and that we get to see it done in the same type of context that it was done in the game. And I'll just lead as an
Hmm.
example of after a certain scene in the hospital and it's all on Ellie and all the stuff that she has to go through by herself. I'm really curious to see how they pull that off because to answer your question, remember about her being a bratty kid and all that stuff, it's that point that you see because if I remember it, that was like when you start taking control as her as a player in the
Yep.
game.
Hmm.
So it's like, oh, wait a minute, now all right, let's see how this goes. So that's my main thing there. I want to see how they play that one out, because that'll be the turning point for how people see her. And of course, now that we know it got picked up for season 2, and she's full Rambo and 2, she's crazy. So they have to show that transition. They can't just poop. Look, this is what you have now.
Well, let's not get too ahead.
Yeah.
I want to see if they can translate one of the villains from the video game into the show. There's villains in the show that are clickers are one thing, but there's creatures that are huge, gigantic monsters, and I wonder if they're ever going to take a chance on at least one of them for this show, because The Walking Dead had this issue. Walkers, they become quite redundant. And what they're doing is they're not showing the clickers that often because they don't want to overuse them and have them, people be like, all right, I've already lost sort of the scare tactics with the clickers. Like they're not frightful anymore for me as a viewer. But I'd be curious to see if they can use some of the other enemies that are part of the video game and have those in the show.
I was thinking about that too, and I don't think they're going to do it. I think, if anything, and this is what happened with The Walking Dead eventually, when Gimple would talk about it, he's like, well, this is the real enemies and the threats are other people, other survivors, because everyone is out for themselves. And then at that point, the zombies are just the background noise. They're just there. You just have to deal with them, but the real threats are the humans. And that's something even in The Last of Us. Yes, you come across some of the certain creatures that you talked about, but majority of the real threats are other humans. So I don't know, but we'll see. And how do they explain that? That's another backstory they're going to have to do.
Well, they are going to have to explain that. The one point that I do want to add is that is, again, something else that we did not see in this particular episode with the Bill thing in the game, is that there is a certain version of this clicker that we saw, because that was an actual boss battle in the game while you were with Bill. So we definitely are going to see that, because they've already shown that particular creature in the trailer for this entire season. I'm curious as to when we see it, though. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I am looking forward to seeing how they handle all of the stuff that happens to Ellie shortly after the part that Adam mentioned, because there's other things that happen to her once you play as her. So looking forward to seeing how they handle all of that. So on that note, was there anything else that either of you wanted to say about this episode before we get ready to wrap up this review?
I just can't believe you guys hated
it. No. I do want to say this, though, and this is going to be shots fired.
Oh,
the next time you need to do a love story, and it's during some type of apocalyptic time, I hope that AMC is taking notes, because this is how you tell a story when there are dire circumstances. Because we've seen this stuff on The Walking Dead, it has not even measured up to the acting. The writing is just, this was on point. So I hope that they are watching this and they consider this for these future spinoffs, because yes, it's very necessary, I would say.
I mean, the only other reason why I could see that reason why AMC really hasn't done this is because they just have too many characters. See, here there's only Joel and Ellie. There we go, and then we could now introduce one other person, as opposed to Walking Dead, when you got a cast of like 12 different characters that everybody wants to see a little bit of. Oh, what's Daryl doing? What's Carol doing? What's this one? There's only so much TV time for something like that. And that was something that we would come across with Game of Thrones, which did a good job of trying to give a good portion of time to Snow and to everybody else that was dealing with stuff in different parts of that world. And it's a juggling, right? That's what it is. And so far, there's not much to juggle here, but they definitely did a good job storytelling with this and bringing that emotion. I'm sure a lot of people got very emotional with this, and they probably weren't expecting that. And I'm sure that's some things that people were upset because they're like, I want to watch a zombie monster show, and now you got me crying.
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely, absolutely, very well done.
yeah.
So I know we've been scoring the episodes. How would you guys score this episode?
I'm gonna say
Ah,
I'll go mine quick,
Oh,
8.5. 8.5. I'm not gonna give it a 10 or anything like that. I don't know what it would be. It would have to be something that's a complete standout that I'm just gonna tell everybody, just watch this one episode. Just watch this one. But it's good. It's good. I have no gripes with it. It's not the second coming
I
of TV shows, but it's good.
yeah. I don't agree with the comments that go that far. I think I say the second episode for me has been the best episode so far. So I would give this an 8. I still think that I give it 8.5 to the second episode, but we'll see where things go from here. How about you, Carlos?
I gave episode 1 an 8. I gave episode 2 an 8.25. And I think I'm with Adam. 8.5 for me. This is this show. Man, gotta praise the consistency here because every episode has been consistently good. No stinkers any as of yet. And even the commercials for it, showing Succession in season 4. I'm like, man, everything about this is a great experience.
Man, right? Succession's coming back. So, but here's a question I have for both of you. Majority of people, at least that I know, have played the game, so they know what to expect. Do you guys know anybody that's watching this show that has not watched or has not played the game, and this is their first experience? And how are they feeling about it?
Not that I've talked to. I'm not sure. Yeah, so far it's only been nerds.
All right. What about you?
So I've been watching this show with my brother. He didn't get a chance to play the game. They actually have gone back to watch some of the game clips, but they're enjoying the show so far. I haven't really spoken to anybody that hates the show. They ask questions afterwards. Did this happen in the game? And I tell them no and explain when certain stuff changes. We did with this episode, but they're enjoying the show so far. They don't have any real complaints.
Does this make your brother want to play the game? Because according to Sony, the sales have been through the roof for The Last of Us. Like everybody's buying this game now.
That is a great question. You'll be happy to hear this, Adam. My brother is diehard Xbox. I don't think he's going to play. I've been telling him you should pick up God of War. Nope. No, I mean he thinks it's cool. He thinks Spider-Man is cool, but he refuses to get a PlayStation, at least for now. Now we'll see.
Tell him to get a Steam Deck. Tell him to get a Steam Deck. He can play all of them on a Steam Deck.
We'll see about that. But now the PS5s are going to be more available than I think he may consider. I don't know. I've been telling him for like the last 2 years you should get a PS5 when it becomes available, and he
doesn't even have to invest in something like that. He can get a PS4. Remember, like the people don't even know The Last of Us came out on a PS3. It was at the tail end of the PS3, so it's an older game. So if he doesn't want to get the PS5, he doesn't need to. He can get on PS3, an old one, hand me down, or a PS4. I'm sure he can find one of those pretty cheap, or bum it off for somebody just to play this one game. So,
I
agree. Oh, we'll see what happens.
Before we conclude, Rich, I do want to mention kind of sad news. Just want to give pay our respects to Annie Wershing, who played Tess in the video game. And apparently she has I think you guys told me or someone else told me she's playing a role in this show. So we're gonna see sort of probably one of her last roles.
It's sad too because I think she had passed, or the news broke right after the episode, like the day after seeing the character that she played in the game pass away.
Yeah. Well, I saw the news headline the other day. But I say, the timing of that is crazy considering
only 45. She was young.
Yeah, and cancer, which is one of the worst things to get. So I do agree with you, Carlos. Yeah, we send our sympathy and prayers to her family and loved ones. But yeah, I don't know which. I know, like I said, I know she is in this show. I don't know what role she is playing in this show. I'm assuming that when that episode
Oh
happens, they'll
yeah.
probably have a dedication to her
Hmm.
at the end
Hmm.
of the in memory. So we'll find out for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. But yes, rest in peace.
Hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, that concludes our review for this week. Do you guys have any shout outs that you would like to give? And I'll go to you first, Carlos. Any shout outs?
Shout outs to the coalition as always. And make sure to watch Throwdown, the Throwdown show on YouTube or all the podcasting apps where we talk about everything video games along with Adam and a whole host of other characters. We talk about video games on a bi-weekly basis. And yeah, Throwdown show. Just search it on YouTube, on Twitter. We have our Twitter set up, or we join our Discord. We talk everything video games, and yeah, pretty fun debates every week.
Absolutely. How about you, Adam? Any shout outs that you would like to give?
Yeah, same thing for Throwdown. Of course, the Coalition. That's the mothership right there. Check that out. This is over at the new channel, the Coalition Gaming. And then, of course, if you're into more Dead, we also, myself, Rich Billy Jr., and Carlos have I Am Negan. That's a Walking Dead podcast where we cover all the Walking Dead shows, including all the new spin-offs. So that's on iTunes, Spotify, and, of course, on the Coalition's main page show and YouTube. So you can check it out there. And thanks again for the subs and the follows.
Absolutely. And yes, I want to give a shout out to you both as well. Always fun having these discussions. Want to give a shout out to the Throwdown as well. Definitely look for a new episode later this week. And give a shout out to everybody that has been supporting the channel. There's quite a bit of things happening in February. So expect to see a lot of things posted on this channel that month because we're working on quite a bit of things behind the scenes. But thank you for your continued support. If you did enjoy this conversation, please consider liking and commenting because we definitely want to hear your thoughts on the show as well. And consider subscribing if you like as well. But thank you all as always. Hope you have a great week, and we will talk to you all next week.
Peace.
Peace.